Hello, Dolphins fans. We have some very good news for you. The Miami Dolphins enter Week 15 with critical developments that could define their season. Before you continue, hit the like button, but only do so if you've been a Miami Dolphins fan since the 70s. If possible, write something like this: Go Dolphins! I believe in the playoffs. So let's get started, my friends. First, the long-awaited return of Bradley Chubb seems closer than ever. The edge rusher, who has been out all year recovering from a knee injury suffered late last season, could make his 2024 debut this Sunday against the Houston Texans. Coach Mike McDaniel, when asked about Chubb and others returning from the PUP list, stated, "This week represents a 100% increase in what they've done so far. We're just waiting to see the signs that they're ready. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's let it happen." Chubb's return could be a game changer for Miami's defense, which has struggled to maintain its dominance over the past 2 weeks. After allowing 31 points to the Green Bay Packers and 26 to the Jets, the defense's vulnerabilities have become increasingly apparent. Despite showing overall strength this season, they rank 29th in sack percentage and are in the bottom 3 teams in the NFL in total sacks. With the Texans' offensive line tied for 6th in sacks allowed this season, Chubb's presence could provide the boost Miami needs to get its pass rush back on track. While expectations are high, fans should temper their excitement. Chubb is likely to be on a pitch count, with McDaniel emphasizing a cautious approach. Chubb's snap count will be limited to 10 to 15 plays, focusing on obvious passing downs. The goal is to ease him back into a full-time role without risking further injury. If the Dolphins lose this week, their playoff hopes may take a critical hit, and they'll need to weigh the risks of playing Chubb against the need to showcase his abilities for a potential offseason trade. In another significant roster update, the Dolphins have activated wide receiver Grant Dubose from injured reserve. The move, somewhat surprising to many, comes after Dubose suffered an injury in Week 2 against the Buffalo Bills. With his 21-day practice window now open, he becomes the 7th player designated to return from IR this season. Miami has just one remaining slot to bring a player back, leaving fans speculating about who might fill that final spot. The decision to activate Dubose, especially given the depth at wide receiver with players like River Crocraft already on the roster, raises questions. Could it be tied to another player's injury? Or is Miami simply hedging its bets for the final stretch of the season? Turning to injuries, the absence of left tackle Terron Armstead looms large for Sunday's matchup. Armstead is unlikely to play, leaving rookie Patrick Paul to step into a challenging role against the Texans' formidable pass rushers, including Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. Veterans like Calais Campbell, Odell Beckham Jr., and others were also absent from Wednesday's practice, but these appear to be routine rest days for players over 30. Armstead's absence, however, is more concerning, as his leadership and protection on the line have been pivotal. Meanwhile, off the field, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross has sold a minority stake in the team to Ares Management. While this transaction stirred some curiosity, Ross retains majority control, and no significant changes to the organization's leadership are expected. For those speculating on the Dolphins' long-term direction, this development appears more like business as usual than a sign of upheaval. The Texans' situation adds another layer of intrigue to Sunday's game. Houston will be without key players, including interior offensive lineman Juice Scruggs and linebacker Aziz Al-Shaair, who is serving a suspension. Kenyon Green, expected to start at left guard, has struggled this season, giving the Dolphins' defense an opportunity to exploit these vulnerabilities. With Miami's defense needing a rebound after subpar performances against Green Bay and the Jets, this game could serve as a critical reset. The stakes couldn't be higher. At 6-7, the Dolphins need to win their final 4 games to keep their playoff hopes alive. A win against Houston could set the stage for a strong finish, with matchups against the 49ers, Browns, and Jets rounding out the season. Each of these games presents opportunities, but the Dolphins must first prove they can handle the Texans, who hold an 8-5 record and sit atop the AFC South. As 3-point underdogs, Miami faces a tough challenge, but a victory here could swing momentum in their favor. With Bradley Chubb potentially returning, Grant Dubose back in the fold, and crucial questions surrounding the team's future, this week is pivotal for Miami. What do you think, Dolphins fans? Will Chubb make the difference this Sunday, or is the team's playoff push too little, too late? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Week 15 brings a crucial showdown for the Miami Dolphins as they hit the road to face the Houston Texans. With the AFC playoff race heating up, this game is a must-win for Miami to stay alive and build confidence in their postseason aspirations. Beyond just the standings, a victory would also help silence lingering narratives surrounding quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and the team's ability to perform under pressure. A significant highlight leading into the game is defensive tackle Zach Sealer earning AFC Defensive Player of the Week honors. Against the New York Jets, Sealer delivered a standout performance with 2 sacks, 4 tackles, and 3 quarterback hits, including a critical sack late in regulation. His effort was instrumental in pushing the Jets back and setting up Miami's dramatic overtime victory. This accolade marks the high point in Sieler's season, and Dolphins fans will be hoping he can replicate this dominance against the Texans. Roster news adds another layer of intrigue as the Dolphins work to activate key players from injured reserve. Wide receiver Grant Deos, sidelined since Week 2, has resumed practice. While his impact remains uncertain after a rough start to the season, his return offers depth at a critical position. Meanwhile, Bradley Chubb, Cameron Good, and Blake Ferguson are also in their second week of practice. However, the clock is ticking. If these players aren't activated within 21 days, they'll be ineligible for the remainder of the season. This raises questions about how Miami will manage its roster to maximize contributions in the weeks ahead. Turning to the Texans, their offense has been inconsistent, failing to meet high expectations despite the presence of standout talents like quarterback C.J. Stroud and wide receiver Nico Collins. Stroud, the reigning offensive rookie of the year, has seen his production dip this season, with fewer touchdown passes than Tagovailoa despite playing 4 more games. A struggling offensive line has been a significant factor, allowing 3.2 sacks per game and ranking among the league's worst in protecting the quarterback. Injuries have further compounded the Texans' issues, with top playmakers like Stephon Diggs and Collins missing time. Collins, however, remains a significant threat, leading the NFL in receiving yards per game at 104. Miami's defense, led by cornerback Jalen Ramsey, faces a pivotal challenge in containing him. On the ground, Houston relies heavily on veteran running back Joe Mixon, who has tallied over 100 rushing yards in 7 of his 10 games this season while scoring 12 touchdowns. Despite his success, the Dolphins' defense has been stout against the run, ranking 7th in the league and allowing just 94 rushing yards per game over the last 3 matchups. Limiting Mixon and pressuring Stroud will be central to Miami's defensive game plan. While the Dolphins' defense shows promise, the team's offensive struggles in the run game are hard to ignore. Over the past 5 games, Miami has averaged a mere 2.8 yards per carry, with total rushing outputs as low as 39 yards in 1 game. Injuries along the offensive line and inconsistent execution have plagued the unit, forcing the team to lean heavily on its passing attack. This reliance on Tua Tagovailoa has yielded historic results. Tua recently became the first player in NFL history to record 40-plus pass attempts, multiple touchdown passes, and no interceptions in 3 consecutive games within a single season. His efficiency and ability to spread the ball across Miami's talented receiving core, including Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, have been the backbone of the team's offensive success. However, maintaining this momentum will require careful planning, especially against the Texans' defense featuring elite edge rushers Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., who have combined for 20 sacks this season. Miami's ability to neutralize Houston's pass rush will depend on creative play calling and solid performances from its offensive line. Head coach Mike McDaniel has demonstrated an ability to scheme effectively against top defensive units, but the challenge remains substantial, especially with injuries to key linemen. The Dolphins' success will likely hinge on Tua's quick decision-making and the team's ability to exploit mismatches in the Texans' secondary, which has struggled in recent weeks. As the Dolphins prepare for this pivotal game, the stakes couldn't be higher. With playoff hopes on the line and questions surrounding the team's consistency, Sunday's matchup is a proving ground. What do you think, Dolphins fans? Can Miami overcome its challenges and deliver a statement win against Houston? Let us know your thoughts and predictions in the comments.